Hello, everyone. With me I have Adam Craig from CTI, and he will talk to us about a very interesting indication in myelofibrosis.
Thank you, Gil. My name is Adam Craig. I'm the CEO and President of CTI Biopharma based in Seattle. I'd like to thank Needham for the opportunity to present today. I will be making some forward-looking statements, and I refer you to the slide. So CTI is a Seattle-based biopharma, and we focus on the area of unmet medical needs in patients with myelofibrosis, a blood malignancy. Our lead product is pacritinib, which we focus on two areas: patients with severe thrombocytopenia, that is patients with platelet counts less than 50,000, and patients who have received prior treatment with Jakafi or ruxolitinib. We've previously conducted two phase 3 trials. We currently have fully enrolled and waiting to report a phase 2 trial, optimal dose study, and have plans to open a new phase 3 within the third quarter of this year. From a corporate perspective, the company's undergone a lot of change over the last 2 years. We have major shareholders now, including Biotech Value Fund, NEA, Stonepine, and OrbiMed. We have reduced our workforce to conserve cash, and we have a runway that takes us comfortably into 2020, having reported $67 million of cash at the end of 2018. So pacritinib is our lead compound. The PAC-203 trial is the phase 2 trial that I referred to, and it will be converted into a phase 3 trial later this year. The two other trials we've conducted, and I'll go into detail in a bit more about these trials later in the presentation, is PERSIST-2, which was conducted in myelofibrosis patients with platelet counts less than 100,000, and PERSIST-1, which was an all-platelet count study. So for those that you don't know, myelofibrosis is quite a debilitating disease. There's three components to the disease. There's impaired blood cell production, which leads to thrombocytopenia and anemia, and the issues related to that, such as bleeding and fatigue. Constitutional symptoms, fatigue, night sweats, bone pain, weight loss, that really are quite a considerable burden for patients, particularly those with advanced disease. And then a very large spleens as a result of extramedullary hematopoiesis, and that can lead to abdominal pain, difficulty with bloating, and early satiety. Patients fill up very quickly when they eat. So it's a bone marrow malignancy. The median survival is about 6 years. There's only one approved therapy, Jakafi in Europe, ruxolitinib. But the unmet medical needs are in two areas: those patients with thrombocytopenia, severe thrombocytopenia, because Jakafi is not indicated in that population, and patients who obviously failed Jakafi, the second-line setting. Severe thrombocytopenia is not a good place to be in myelofibrosis because the survival is poor. The overall survival reported in patients with platelet counts less than 50,000 is 15 months, as shown in this paper. Ruxolitinib, patients can present frontline with thrombocytopenia, or they can get it as a result of ruxolitinib therapy, and it is one of the main toxicities of ruxolitinib therapy. And these data from the COMFORT trials, longitudinal data from the COMFORT trials, which were conducted with ruxolitinib, show that over time, around 8 to 12 weeks into therapy, on the left-hand panel, platelet counts begin to drop. And with the platelet count drops, doses are dropped to try and manage the toxicity. However, the result of that is that patients end up on potentially reduced clinical benefit with a reduced dose. So once the platelet count starts to drop, it can be difficult to manage these patients. Furthermore, if you fail ruxolitinib and discontinue, as 50% of patients do by 3 years, and approximately 75% of patients by 5 years, the survival is reported at 7 to 14 months. And if you add on top, as shown on the right-hand curve, if you have thrombocytopenia and you've stopped ruxolitinib, the survival is even worse, as shown in the red line on the right-hand panel. So pacritinib is a novel JAK2 inhibitor. It's been studied in over 1,200 patients in clinical trials. We have orphan drug designation, both in the US and in Europe. We have patent protection to 2029, 2030, and that doesn't exclude potential extensions. And as I said, we've completed two phase 3 trials. PERSIST-1 was an all-comer platelet trial, 2-to-1 randomization comparing pacritinib 400 milligrams to best available therapy. But in this setting, no prior ruxolitinib was allowed. And then PERSIST-2 was a similar study, but the platelet count was less than 100,000. Two posologists were tested, 200 twice a day and 400 once a day. And prior ruxolitinib was allowed in this setting, and it was also allowed on the best available therapy arm. So the opportunity for a new agent in the myelofibrosis area is quite significant. We estimate between the prevalence of the disease between the US and Europe of around 48,000 patients. And if you look at the severely thrombocytopenic population, we estimate that's around 18,000 patients, so around a quarter to a third of the prevalent population. And those patients are made up of three components. You have patients who are frontline. They present to their physicians with severe thrombocytopenia. There are patients who've discontinued ruxolitinib, often because of thrombocytopenia. And then there are patients who are managed symptomatically with low-dose ruxolitinib, such as 5 milligrams twice a day or 5 milligrams once a day. And putting all those patients together, you can see that there's quite a significant market opportunity in the severely thrombocytopenic population. So if you look at the data from PERSIST-1, this is the study that did not have a platelet count restriction. You'll see that we hit our primary endpoint, which was a 35% or greater spleen volume reduction as measured centrally by MRI or CT scan. And we had a 19 versus 5% improvement, 19 in the pacritinib arm versus 5% in the best available arm with statistical significance. We achieved a doubling of the improvement, a 50% improvement in total symptom score, the other commonly used method for assessing efficacy in myelofibrosis. Unfortunately, this result was not statistically significant because the sample was quite small, because the tool used to test for TSS has changed mid-study. PERSIST-2 was the second trial, and to remind you, that's the trial where the platelet count was restricted to 100,000 or less than 100,000. And looking at the combined data for spleen volume reduction, again we had a statistically significant result with 18 versus 3% compared to best available therapy. And again we saw approximate doubling of TSS, but without statistical significance, this time attributed to the trial ending early because of a clinical hold that was being placed some years ago. From a toxicity point of view, we have a very good understanding of the toxicity of the drug now, not only from the PERSIST trials, but also the current study, the PAC-203 trial. And diarrhea is common. It occurs around 2 to 3 weeks into therapy and often resolves with symptomatic treatment. And we also get some thrombocytopenia. Interestingly, you see here with best available therapy, a third of those patients of which did not get any therapy because they were so-called watch and wait therapy. We've got 23% in the best available therapy arm on PERSIST-2 and slightly higher rates on the pacritinib arms. So it just illustrates that thrombocytopenia is part of the disease. It is a problem for patients with advancing myelofibrosis. So the PAC-203 trial is currently, we've completed the panel on the left, the phase 2 component. We enrolled just over 150 patients. Enrollment finished second week of January of this year. And it was a dose-ranging study that studied 3 doses, 200 milligrams twice a day, 100 milligrams twice a day, and 100 milligrams once a day. And we are, as I'll go over shortly, we're about to meet with the FDA. We plan to meet with them fairly shortly, where we can determine and agree on the optimal dose, and that dose will then be taken into the phase 3 setting. And the current plan for the phase 3 is to do a study in patients with who are severely thrombocytopenic. We will allow limited use of prior ruxolitinib. It will be approximately 150 to 200 patients. The final sample size is still being determined. And we're going to have pacritinib against physician's choice. And physician's choice will include agents such as steroids, thalidomide, hydroxyurea, and low-dose ruxolitinib. So the ongoing trial, as I said, was a 3-way randomization between 3 doses. The efficacy will be, towards the middle of the year, will be reported at 24 weeks, spleen volume reduction. We do intend to present the data once we've completed our discussions with the FDA, and most likely that will be at ASH towards the end of the year. The optimal dose determination meeting with the FDA is expected, as I've already said, in the middle part of this year. So from a regulatory point of view, for phase 3, because we've got the most data on this, we are focusing on the severely thrombocytopenic population. We have already met in December last year. We had a Type C meeting with the FDA where we went through virtually every aspect of the protocol design, but they did ask us to come back and have a final discussion around the optimal dose, which is what we're going to do. And in that discussion, we're going to present pharmacokinetic and pharmacodynamic analysis that supports our rationale for selecting the optimal dose. With the optimal dose, we will then adapt or convert the 203 to a phase 3 trial by amending the protocol. We're doing that because there's no reason for us to close a study, then open another one. That would just waste time, and it's not in the interest of anyone to waste time. So as it's the same sites in the phase 2 that will be participating in the phase 3, we're going to convert the trial from phase 2 to phase 3. And we're currently targeting over 100 sites, clinical sites worldwide. We currently have around 60 on the phase 2, so we are going to add additional sites. We are not going to allow crossover on this study. That's been an issue for us with confounding the analysis of survival benefits. And as I said, the enrollment will occur in Q3, which should start in Q3, subject to us meeting with the FDA. And based on that, we do expect top-line data to be available in the middle part of 2021. If we combine the data from all our studies, both phase 2, PERSIST-1, PERSIST-2, you can see here that we do have a good spleen volume reduction rate, 23 versus 2%, that's statistically significant in the combined analysis. And I draw your attention to that because that's the primary endpoint we've agreed on with the FDA for the trial. So from a financial perspective, we have reported, as I've already said, $67 million of cash at the end of 2018. We have taken significant steps towards reducing our cash burn and focusing the company on spending money on the clinical trial, clinical operations and clinical development, and that will be our focus with a reduced cash burn this year and next year as a result of our reducing our workforce. We have $14 million in debt. With that, I'll take questions, and thank you.
Any questions from the audience? I guess I can ask them. So, could you discuss a little bit about how many patients actually fail ruxolitinib due to the decreasing count? It's pretty much all going on.
Yeah. So 50% of patients discontinue by 3 years and 75% is by 5 years. My understanding of it is the majority are failing either because of lack of efficacy and thrombocytopenia, and those two issues can go together. Dropping platelet counts on ruxolitinib is common. So the reports we're getting from our physicians is a mix of, treating the physicians we're speaking to, it's a mix. But thrombocytopenia is a big issue, and you saw from the pie chart that I presented earlier, a significant number of the patients with severe thrombocytopenia, the prevalent population, have had ruxolitinib or are continuing on low-dose ruxolitinib because there's no other available therapy for them.
So, you mentioned the low-dose rux. My understanding that low-dose rux doesn't do much of anything. People are giving it off-label. It's not even labeled for
No, it's not labeled. There's not an indication for starting the patient if they have a platelet count less than 50,000. What we're told by our physicians, and we obviously have a lot of discussions with them as part of the 203 trial, is that Ruxolitinib is given for symptomatic relief. For example, if a patient is got bad itching, wishes to take a shower, needs to sleep at night, the drug is given for symptomatic relief. But there isn't an expectation that there'll be clinical benefit beyond that. Now, it doesn't mean there aren't examples of that, but generally it's given for symptomatic relief. And it just illustrates the unmet medical need. You know, if we were able to come into the marketplace and offer a drug for severely thrombocytopenic population, we will be transforming people's the therapy options for patients, because at the moment, as you quite rightly say, Gil, there's not much that can be done for these patients.
All right. Thank you very much. Any other questions?
Thank you.